You guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about how to maximize earnings as a co-host, right? So let's go ahead and break it down right now. But before we get into that, let's actually talk about what is co-hosting. So co-hosting is literally Airbnb management. So you're managing an Airbnb for people that currently do not have the time to manage it for themselves. So it may be somebody who has a lot of money and maybe they bought a property as an investment and they just don't have time to manage it as an Airbnb, or they just don't know how to manage it as an Airbnb, but they wanted to get into Airbnbs. And that's where you come in. You manage the whole Airbnb for them. So you don't have to put down the down payment. You don't have to pay for the furnishing. You don't have to pay for closing costs. All you got to do is literally spend your time managing it for somebody else. And with the proper automations in place, you can literally do it with very little time, 1 to 2 hours per week per property. So let's go ahead and get right into it. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to set you up for success, right? So first thing that you want to do is you want to set up your account. You want to make sure your profile is optimized as well as the listing for the person that you are managing for. All right. It's very important to have a proper co-hosting agreement in place before you start managing for that actual person. So what I always like to say is if there's a local property manager or a larger property manager in your market, go ahead and set up a conversation with them, get their contract and just adjust it to yourself. Make it simple as possible. Or you can go on ChatGPT, whatever it's called, and ask for a co-hosting management agreement. Or if you need one for yourself, just go ahead and message me agreement on Instagram and I'll send you over mine. Either way, let's go ahead and jump into it. As far as maximizing your profits on Airbnb go, is I like to first begin with using a software called Price Labs. Price Labs, you can get it online for a subscription. I believe it's around $20 a month per property. And as you get more properties, that price then goes down. So that's the first one that I would recommend. And pretty much what Price Labs actually does is adjust your pricing based on the supply and the demand in the actual market for the seasonality. So say for example, it's New Year's Eve time, you're visiting Miami, you're most likely gonna pay over $1,000 a night for a Airbnb during that time frame. But if you're in the slower months like August, September, October, you may pay $300 for that same Airbnb, but there's more people that want to be in Miami for New Year's Eve to celebrate, right? So what the software does is that it'll adjust the pricing for you depending on how much demand there is in a market. The hotel chains like Ritz-Carlton, Hilton have been using these for years, right? And now we're bringing it to the Airbnb space. And what's great about Price Labs, it'll also adjust your pricing if you have something called an orphan date. An orphan date is just like a day that falls between two stays that most likely is not going to get booked. And what the pricing software will do with the right filters in place that you are going to set, you can decrease the price in place for those orphan days to make sure that they do get booked. All right, so Price Labs is going to be one. The second one that I would recommend that I personally use is something called RankBreeze. And RankBreeze, what it does is you can take your Airbnb listing and you can plug it into RankBreeze and it's going to show you where you're currently ranked in Airbnb's algorithm based on which page your property falls on, right? RankBreeze is pretty cheap as well. I believe it's between $30 and $50 a month. Very cheap software. Definitely recommend. And what's awesome about RankBreeze is it's also going to give you a selection of which photos may perform better for your actual listing too. It's going to give you a description that could potentially help you. And it's going to do what is amazing about it is it's actually going to show you your comparables in the market and what they're actually making, right? So it's great. So you can save those comparables and then it's going to actually show you what nights those comparables are already booked for, what the minimum nightly stay they're requiring for, and what they're actually charging on a nightly basis. So instead of going to Airbnb directly, pulling up the comparables and then scrolling on their calendar to see each individual day and what they're pricing at, RankBreeze is just going to show you all of them at the same time and save you so much time as well. All right, so those are two great softwares. What I also want you to think about and implement today is I want you to start putting in special deals around slow season and increase your prices in high season. All right, so for example, slow season, say you're in August, September, October in South Florida where I'm located, and you're not really getting that many bookings, right? So what I always recommend for a strategy that I always implement is for the slow season, I'll decrease my average daily rate on price labs by a certain percentage, maybe it's 15, 20%, but I'll then increase the minimum nightly stay that a guest has to book. So say for example, a guest is required to book 3 days on the weekend in high season because the prices are so high. Out of season, I'm gonna decrease that rate and I'm gonna increase the amount of days that a guest can book from 3 days to potentially 5 days or 7 days, right? So what happens is, although you're decreasing your rate, you're getting more days booked on the calendar for your potential owner that you're managing for. All right, so think of a few different strategies that you can implement. That is just one. There are numerous different ones to increase your booking percentage as well as your ADR amount. All right, so let's talk about the importance of guest communication right now. So guest communication is what's going to determine how many reviews and how high quality reviews are going to be for your Airbnb property. And reviews are either going to what is going to make or break your actual Airbnb account. So I always recommend try to maintain a 4.85 star rating on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, whatever other OTA or booking platforms you're currently using. I highly recommend keeping a high review, because the higher review you get, Airbnb's algorithm works like this. The more reviews you get that are 5 stars, the more they're going to push your actual listing, because it shows that you're providing a high quality experience. So how do we provide a high quality experience? We do that by constant guest communication before a guest gets to the property, during the guest being at that property, and after the guest leaves. So what does that look like? After a guest books your actual property, you're gonna message them, thank you for booking my property. I will be in touch with you as you get closer to your reservation. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me. You're then gonna send another message 24 hours before they check in, letting them know their check-in instructions, Wi-Fi instructions, all that good detail. And then after they check in, 24 hours after they check in, you're gonna send them another message. Hey, hope you checked in, everything went smoothly. If you have any questions, anything that can do to help you have a 5-star experience, please let me know. All right, so we're saying 5-star experience because we're putting that in their mind. So whenever they do check out and they leave us a review, we're already letting them know, thinking about 5-star review, we want that left for ourselves. 24 hours before they check out, we send checkout instructions to them. After they check out, 24 hours later, we send them a thank you. Hope you have a great experience. If you had a 5-star review, please leave us a review. It really would mean the world to us. If there's anything that wasn't phenomenal about your trip, please let us know so that we can correct that for you. All right. So we're asking for 5-star reviews. We're mentioning 5-star reviews so that we get 5-star reviews, right? So it's very important. And then the other thing I do want to mention is, like, as a guest is actually staying there, make sure you're giving them recommendations, right? So they're on vacation. They want to know the best places to go in town. And if you're managing that Airbnb, you should have recommendations for them to do, whether it's the closest beach, whether it's a nice restaurant, whether it's nightlife, whatever the attractions are for your city, make sure you're giving that to them and providing them a guidebook as well. A guidebook can just be 5-6 pages long. Wi-Fi instructions, recommendations, your phone number, things like that, things for them to do, is creating an overall positive experience for your actual guests. All right, so we want to maintain proper guest communication, satisfaction. We also want to make sure we're maintaining maintenance and cleanliness protocols. All right, so what I'll do is I have my cleaners have a checklist that they go through every single time whenever a guest checks out, so that we maintain the highest quality of cleanliness. So what this looks like, all right? So they strip every bed, they make sure everything's wiped down, they leave a note, a handwritten letter for every single guest. Dear Mr. Jones, I hope you have a great experience. We've left you this bottle of champagne. We've left you these goodies, this welcome basket, whatever it is to make that experience stand out, because majority of these Airbnbs that you go to, they do the bare minimum, right? So if you're really able to go above and beyond and do something a guest is not expecting, it's going to be reflected in your reviews, and it's going to be able to allow you to charge more on a nightly rate perspective and be pushed higher in the algorithm because it's going to be reflected in those reviews. All right. So the worst thing that you could possibly do is have a property that's poorly cleaned. It's going to be reflected in your reviews. And if you don't have the proper protocols in place for your cleaners, as well as proper maintenance check-ins, at least on a quarterly basis, your property is going to show that in your actual reviews themselves. All right. So what does maintenance check-ins look like? So I do it on a quarterly basis. I have my operations manager go to every single house, check to make sure all the light bulbs are screwed in, make sure there's no lights turned off, make sure the landscaping looks in the proper condition like it should be, and just check the cleaner's works as well, right? So there's multiple different things with a maintenance check-in that you need to do to make sure the Roku remotes are actually filled in with the batteries, replacing those, making sure the grills actually have propane. There's so many small details that you need to look into, because the fact is if a guest comes to the property, propane tank is out, one of the Roku remotes isn't working, you can prevent that with proper maintenance check-ins. All right, so that's one thing. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be marketing and promotion, right? So obviously we can do this on Airbnb, we can use this on Vrbo with a proper listing optimization when it comes to the description, comes to photos, comes to the pricing. But if we really want to go above and beyond for our actual owners, there's certain SEO keywords that you can put in on their actual website. Say you have a property that does $200,000, $250,000, and they're already on Airbnb, but they want to get to $300,000 in revenue, right? These are great properties to do it for. Potentially build a website for these actual owners, certain keywords, SEO. I use Google reviews for some properties. And there's also different websites that you can look into where instead of booking it for like a whole day, you can charge an hourly rate, right? So one website that I've used is called PeerSpace. So what PeerSpace is say you have a wedding, somebody wants to book a nice property for a wedding, or somebody wants to shoot photos there for an event that they're doing, and they only want to rent it for 4 hours. You can literally go on PeerSpace, put that property on there, and it's another advantage that you're able to pitch to your potential prospects that want to consider you as their Airbnb manager or their co-host that you're doing that other property managers do not have the time to do or haven't even thought about in the past. All right, so look up PeerSpace after this call to help push more bookings for your owners. All right, so let's talk about responding to reviews and building credibility, right? So we always want to be able to get good reviews, and where a lot of people always mess up is they only respond to bad reviews, right? They don't respond to the good reviews. You should be responding to every single review, because what's going to happen is it's going to help you in the algorithm as well if you respond to every single review. So if you get a good review, respond to them. If you get a bad review, make sure you definitely respond to them as well. And before we even get to the bad review, what we want to do is, like, if there's an issue that the guest tells you about before they check out, make sure you handle that as quickly as possible and offer any solution to minimize having them leave a bad review, right? But if they do leave a bad review, it's completely fine. What we can do is we can comment on it, but the main goal is to fix that before it actually gets to your actual profile and it impacts you negatively in the algorithm. The more bad reviews you get, even if you get a 4-star review, it's not good, it's gonna negatively impact you. We wanna go for as many 5-star reviews as we possibly can, all right? So now let's talk about analyzing and adjusting different pricing strategies, all right? So you should be monitoring your price labs and your RankBreeze pricing at least 2 times a week, right? So what does that look like? So say, for example, on Price Lab, the occupancy and the average daily rate is 70% and you're performing at 60%. All right, so there's room for improvement to at least get to the baseline that the other comparables in your market are doing. So what does that look like? Why are they performing better? So what I would do if I was you is I would look at those comparables on Price Lab's RankBreeze and look at their description, look at their title, look at their photos, look at their amenities. Like, what amenities do they currently have that you do not currently have? Do they have pools? Are they designed in a different way? Do they have a ping pong table? Do they have a putt-putt thing? Do they have a basketball court in the backyard? What are these amenities that's being able to drive that extra revenue that these properties are making that your property currently does not have? So always be adjusting your pricing and always be looking at the comparables to make sure you're maximizing your revenue for your potential owner that you're managing for. All right, so just to recap one more time, how to maximize your revenue for your Airbnb co-host property that you're managing for. So first thing is, make sure you're using Price Labs, make sure you're using RankBreeze, make sure you're actually looking at the comparables Price Labs and RankBreeze presents to you twice a week at the very minimum, and adjusting pricing and looking at the actual amenities that these other properties potentially have, okay? The other thing is that you want to make sure you're maintaining proper guest communication with your guests multiple times during their stay, at least 4 times. When they book, before they check in, when they check in, 24 hours after before they check out, and then 24 hours after they check out. All right. So if we maintain this proper guest communication, the best way for me to present it to you is if you go to a Ritz-Carlton, the hospitality and the client service that you get there compared to if you're staying at a Motel 6 are completely different. If you want to be able to charge the most amount of money and get the most amount of money for your actual owners that you can, you need to be providing the Ritz-Carlton experience, the Four Seasons experience for your actual guests themselves. Because one thing I do want you to remember is as a co-host, you're paid based on percentage that the property makes. And it's usually 20%. The property makes $120,000. You charge 20%. You make $2,000 per month or $24,000 for the year for just managing that one property for about 1 to 2 hours a week. All right. So maintaining that communication is critical for you. The next thing I want you to remember that we spoke about is making sure you have the proper service agreement in place for your actual owners and make sure it's well drafted. And without further ado, that is going to be your recap for how you make the most amount of money and you maximize the potential income for the owner that you're managing for. And if you guys like this video or if you have any other comments or any questions, go ahead and leave them below, like, subscribe. And if you want to get in contact with me, message me on Instagram at Austin__Palacios, and I'll see you next time.